Welcome to Let's Talk Property, an informal podcast show all about the UK property and mortgage market. I'm Neezam, and as always, joining me is my co-host, Lee. Whether you're a seasoned property investor or just starting to think about buying your first home, this podcast is for you. We'll be discussing a range of topics, including the latest market trends, tips for finding the perfect property, and how to secure a mortgage deal. So join us as we explore the world of property and help you make informed decisions about your next property purchase. Topic today, Lee, would you like to introduce this one?
Yes, mammoth topic in interest rates. I wanted to cover interest rates or mortgage rates specifically. The big focus, most people who are buying property or looking to remortgage, they are heavily dictated by mortgage rates or interest rates in particular. So I just wanted to kind of really do an overview. I'm not going to deep dive into why interest rates are where they are, but just a real overview of where they are at the minute, what does it look like, and then what's predicted. Because there are a few predictions, but what's predicted for 2024. So hopefully it'll give those, particularly those first-time buyers and people looking to move home, a real good understanding as to what's expected for 2024. Yeah.
Excellent. Brilliant. I think it's a big good one because there's a lot of people, obviously interest rates is what drives behavior, right, in the economy. So do we move? Do we wait? Do we buy now? Do we sell? All of that is driven by what are interest rates doing, which drives the market. So it's all linked together, isn't it? And I think, it's a really important topic to discuss. It's a question a lot of people have is what are interest rates doing? I think a lot of people from the conversations I've had with a lot of first-time buyers are sat on their hands waiting, but they don't know what they're waiting for. So, are they waiting for a drop? Don't know. Maybe not. Are their interest rates going to get worse? Are they going to get better? Obviously, no one has a crystal ball, but it'd be really interesting to see what you've got to say.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we see in the news, BBC News, Sky News, or whatever it might be, interest rates are rising, interest rates are rising, interest rates are rising. So it's, what does that actually mean? So I guess we'll kind of cover that as well. I guess what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of looking back from the last 12 months. So I think it's safe to say that interest rates in the last 12 months, or maybe even slightly longer, have risen somewhat since the last year. I think there's been 14 consecutive. 14 or 15. So that's pretty big, to be honest. That's pretty big. So we have seen one of the biggest increase in interest rates in a long time. So if we're looking back, there's no doubt interest rates have risen quite a bit. If we're kind of focusing and are talking in November 2023 at the moment, and with interest rates potentially changing from month to month, this podcast could very quickly become out of date. But if we're talking over the last few months, there has been real positive sign with interest rates. There's been some positive in terms of we haven't seen a great deal of increases, and we've actually seen mortgage rates, which is slightly different to what you might see with the Bank of England. So the Bank of England have a base rate, which is what they call it. But mortgage rates itself isn't only dictated, particularly fixed rates, isn't only dictated by that. But fixed rate mortgages have actually come down. So in the last few months, probably since the summer, we I don't want to quote too many interest rates, but we got as high as 7% with some late 7% with some high street banks. We're now kind of going as low as sub 5%. So again, this could be very out of date come December 2023. But I guess what I probably wanted to be clear on is, yes, we have seen interest rates rise over the last 12 months, and they have risen considerably. I think everyone is aware of that. I think what's great to see at the moment, and this is at the moment, is that we seem to be hitting some form of a peak. Obviously, I caveat that with what depending on what happens with inflation, which I won't deep dive in too much. But there has definitely been some more positive news with interest rates of late, and we have seen interest rates come down, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's been a very unpredictable year. We've seen lots of people trying to predict what's happening at the start of the year. And I'd love to go back and revisit. Maybe we should do that, go back and revisit what those predictions were, because I think, they've just been revising them again and again and again and again and again. And they just, it's impossible to know. A lot of things happened this year we just didn't know were going to happen. And that is the nature of it, I guess. I guess that's the nature of it. So
absolutely, and I think that's probably one of the, and we get thrown this question probably all the time, is what is going to happen with interest rates. But the honest truth is, I don't think, no one has the facts, no one has no one knows what is going to happen. I think people can see and predict, but I think it's really tough. It has been tough. It's probably a little bit more, hopefully a bit more predictable now, it's steadied, but it's still unknown. But hopefully these predictions will help. So I'll jump straight in then. So obviously we've seen interest rates rise over the last year, and they've really plateaued recently, and have come down. So fixed rate mortgages have come down to sub 5%. Predicted for 2024. So I think there's no shadow of a doubt it's unlikely, very unlikely, that we are going to see any interest rates like we did a few years ago. So first time buyers listening to this, they probably have no idea what interest rates were a couple of years ago, but they were historically 1-2%, for a good few years. I think most experts are predicting that this is not going to happen for a long time if it does. So I think we could probably bury that box now and say it's highly unlikely that we're going to see in the next few years, in particular, the 1% and 2% that we were all sort of sitting on as homeowners a few years ago. We're not going to get that low. I think what is predicted though, and this is a few sort of reputable websites are predicting that interest rates will start to plateau, like we have been with interest rates are starting to sort of level out. We've saw 14 consecutive rises, and next year for 2024 we'll probably see interest rates sort of slow down. We may see them, and this is some of the predictions, and we may see them drop in 2024. So we may see some further reductions in fixed rates. But what those interest rates look like, we don't know. Again, it's highly unlikely it'll be the 1s and 2s. We are currently at sub 5. So we may see 3 or 4% is kind of what it's kind of what people are predicting. So I think to set expectations, I don't think we're going to see any real significant drops. But again, I want to caveat that we may actually see some rises depending on what happens with everything else. Again, this is a very unpredictable market. So, but I think the general consensus is that we will kind of plateau and interest rates will stay kind of where they are, maybe just below where they are at the moment, for the rest of 2024. And that is predicted, and that has been quoted by the Bank of England, that they don't predict interest rates dropping for a little while. So my vision, when they say a little while, that tells me it's probably next year. We don't see them dropping, if at all, next year, or maybe very slightly, is what I think. So if you're listening to this and you're a first-time buyer, or you're a home mover, or you're looking to do something regarding your mortgage itself, and you're waiting for interest rates to become what they were 2 years ago, the 1 and 2%, I'm sad to say I don't think that's likely anymore. I think that's, I think a lot of experts are predicting that won't happen. So waiting out for those interest rates, you could be waiting a long time. And to set expectations, where we're at the moment, it's probably going to be very similar, if not slightly lower in the future.
Absolutely. Interesting stuff. I think the bottom line is no one knows. That's by the sounds of it. But like you said, if you're getting told hold off buying a property because your next door neighbour's telling you, don't worry, rates are going to come back down again, they have to. Yeah. What makes you think that person knows more than the Bank of England? And don't get me wrong, even the Bank of England have held their hands up earlier this year and said, look, we have got it wrong. So even they're getting it wrong. I think it's safe to say no one really knows. And I think like Lee said, if you're sat on your hands thinking, I'm going to time getting on the property ladder, or I'm going to time that next move, what are you waiting for? How do you know when you're there is the other thing I would say. Because, if you go back a few years to when rates were really low, people didn't see them going up. So how do we, still a lot of people only fix in for 2 years, because if people would have foreseen interest rates going up, they would have fixed in longer. So, I think, how do you know when you're in that market? You don't until you're looking back on it. And then there's change. So I think, if the time is right, you find a house you like, it's comfortable more on a monthly basis, that is generally the focus that we normally say to our clients is, look, that's what is stopping you. Yes, rates might go up again, they might go down, and you might be paying a little bit more, but we're not America. Rates aren't locked in for the term of your mortgage. They're only locked in for usually 2 to 5 years. So you get an opportunity to review it again. But yeah, I'd say maybe stop trying to predict what's happening. I would say to anyone that's in that position, and just try and work out what's important.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, and it should always be important anyway, that monthly mortgage payment. But I think you really hit it really well. Then it's just laser focusing what it costs to buy a property, rather than focusing on, I want a 400,000 property. Actually, what can I afford on a monthly basis, and then base your budget.
Yeah.
And a mortgage advisor should help you to flip the coin a little bit. I know the 3-bed or the 3-bed near the school costs 400, but actually, what can you afford? You might be able to afford 300,000-400,000, but actually, what can you afford on a monthly basis? And then that might open up your mind to what you can afford on a as a property value and everything else. But yeah, it's a minefield, interest rates. But I guess what I really wanted people to come away with on the podcast is exactly that. Not trying to predict what's happening. I think we've seen some really positive sort of things happening in the last couple of months regarding interest rates. They have, they have definitely dropped considerably since the summer, which is really positive. But I will caveat that with, again, we're still in a really difficult time. So, it's still unpredictable. So, in December 2023, we could see interest rates rise. But at the moment, as an overview, we're looking really promising, and it's looking like it's going to stay the same for 2024. But hopefully that's helped help people, maybe first home or remortgaging, and thinking about, okay, what to expect for next year and what their monthly payments are expected to go to. And just gives them a really good idea as to what's predicted and where they are at the moment. Hopefully it's helped.
I think it will have done. And it's a great point that actually a lot of people are coming to the end of the deal next year. There's a huge amount of people that are coming to the end of a fixed rate that will be on 2% or less, and that will be ending next year. So even if it's not due in the next 6 months, even if it's due in 9 months, 10 months time, hopefully, I think this podcast episode, the information you've given, will start planting that seed around what do I want to do? It's not to replace getting mortgage advice, of course. Everyone's different, circumstances are different, but actually it should plant that seed a little bit to say, okay, here's what the market is apparently doing. This is what people are saying that the market's doing. And again, you then need to speak with an advisor and get some advice on what's right for you. But I think that was a really good snapshot on where the market is and right now and where it's going. And yeah, I think that will help people.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you touched on there, getting in touch, sort of start planning this. You're reviewing your mortgage 6 months before, isn't it? That's kind of the spot.
Yeah,
that's the kind of sweet spot. A lot of people do seem to think that's too early. But trust me, you can secure your new rate 6 months early with some banks. And trust me, these things can take time, and the market changes quite a lot during that period. So I think just planning ahead is what I'd take from this. And the same goes for first-time buyers and home movers. Just plan ahead. Having those conversations early, understand what you can afford. Rates do drop in 2024. It's only going to look prettier. It's only going to look better from what you're looking at now and your plans from now. I think the key takeaway as well is just plan ahead if you're a home mover or looking to buy a home. Definitely.
100%. Brilliant. Great episode, Lee. Happy with that.
Cool. Woo! I kept it under 15 minutes, which is good. I'll wrap up. Thank you for joining us for an episode of Let's Talk Property. We hope you found the discussion on the UK property market informative and helpful. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to send us a message. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and follow us on social media for updates on future episodes. Until next time, we'll see you in the property market.